Monday, May 29th. Happy Memorial Day. Shit is wild out there. And welcome to Season 1, Episode 10, the season finale of Luke, Who Is Your Father? We have made it.
Ow, ow, ow!
A podcast about mystery, scandal, and triumph of the familial variety. This season, we have told you about being triplets, separated at birth. We've dragged you through the trials and tribulations of growing up separately, coming together, and today we are finally culminating with the end of the hunt for our biological father. You can see this episode and the entire Season 1, which is crazy, and bonus content by subscribing to Luke Who Is Your Father on YouTube. You can follow us on TikTok at Luke Who Is Your Father Pod, at Ricky Jump, and at Jules Who Is Your Father, and follow us on Instagram at Luke Who Is Your Father, and at Ricky Jump, and at Kenny K. We so appreciate your support, and we would love, especially in this off season, if you could just take it 10 seconds to rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast. And I messed something up, it sounds like, but we're going to keep on going to share with a friend or family member who you think would enjoy it or just benefit from listening to it altogether.
Amen.
I would love to think that Kenny K, whoever you are on Instagram, has received a lot of followers.
She says it every time.
I am so sorry. Kendall's Instagram handle is
Kenny K23.
Kenny K23. I don't know why I'm just blind to the 23 at the end. All right, Kenny K23. More importantly, and this is more important than ever, we have reached the end of the first season.
We've done it.
We are going to be taking a 2-month break in which we will be, of course, taking a break because
going to
therapy, kill each other, going to therapy,
lots of therapy.
But what we're really focusing on is we're starting to put together Season 2. We already have we have quite a few guests, honestly, lined up. I will be giving you a little sneak peek into our first guest at the end of the finale today. But we will never stop needing more content. We have enjoyed this, believe it or not, and we want to keep doing it for as long as we can, which means that we need to talk to you guys. We want to toss the mic over to you and really just dive into your stories. And we want to hear about the relationships you have with your daddies. We want to hear about, mistaken identities, maybe even just coming to terms with the relationships that you have with your family that are not that great. Of course, DNA discoveries, anything that really falls under the large umbrella of really who is or isn't or was or will be your father. So we have a website where you can do that. We have 2 email addresses. We have lukewhoisyourfatherpod@gmail.com, or we have Ricky at lukewhoisyourfather.com. And then you can submit, again, on our website. It's beautiful. Kendall has done a beautiful job with that, as well as all the other design for the podcast. So you can go there. You can read our bios, any mentions in the press or on other podcasts, see all of the platforms that we're streaming on, and most importantly, submit your stories. So go check that out at lukewhoisyourfather.com. I feel like I've already said this, but I am Jules.
I'm Kenny.
And I'm Ricky.
And if you're new here, you can tell that we're excited because this is the finale of our first season. This season, we have told the stories of us. We were separated at birth. Ricky grew up with our birth mother. Kendall and I grew up together as twins. So we talked about what it was like finding out about that. We talked about meeting each other. Both of our fathers ended up passing away at really crucial times in our lives. We talked about how that affected us. And we really got all the way to the end here today, which is resulted in us finding our biological father. Ricky kind of spearheaded that search long ago.
Kind of spearheaded.
She spearheaded that search long ago. And it's been just quite a journey. And today, we are actually going to be interviewing Keith. So stick around for that, just questions about what it's like being a sperm donor that has a massive surprise 35 years later into his life. But before we get into that, so we have a couple things to handle before that. First, we have our crazy question of the day, and then we're going to be revealing the results of our twin zygosity test. Ricky is going to explain more about what that is when we open them, but we're so excited and we have some wagers on the line.
And thank you so much to My Forever DNA for supplying us with those tests.
Oh, yes.
We recommend that you do all of your DNA testing with them.
Yes, with My Forever DNA. Wonderful family-owned company out of Nebraska, and they are just wonderful ladies as well. So, for our crazy question of the day, we know that Keith did not get away with donating sperm anonymously and never being found by his biological daughter. So what I want to know is, what is the craziest thing you have or have not gotten away with? Ricky, we will start with you.
So my friends, Jordan and Kevin, were together for, I think, 2 years at this point, and we all kind of knew that there was an engagement coming our way. Kevin obviously appointed me as his kind of go-between to surprise Jordan with her engagement. And we had to dodge a lot of bullets, but we finally made it there. And everything was very well set up. We were going to surprise Jordan at her house with a party after he had proposed in Zilker Park. And lo and behold, the night before, it rained like 7 inches.
Of course.
So they have no power in their house. So Kevin and I are texting back and forth trying to figure out how this is going to work. And he said Jordan was at the doctor. So I called him and was FaceTiming him. And in the middle of our conversation, Jordan walked in. And Kevin doesn't know how amazing I am on the spot. So I see him look up at her and be like, "Hi." And I just said, "Well, is that Joe?" And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "Well, then let me just ask her." And I was like, "I really want to go two-stepping tonight. And I texted you and it didn't go through. And I called you and it didn't go through. And I know that you guys probably have plans, so I just want to get this plan made quickly if possible." So I gave Kevin a ring. "Do you want to go two-stepping tonight?" And she was like, "Oh, I was parked in a parking garage. I'm sorry that I didn't get your messages. Let me talk to Kevin about it." And of course, after we got off the phone, all I was thinking was, Jordan walked in on me calling her almost fiance. She probably thinks we're having an affair. So I was freaking out about that, but she did not think that. And we did, in fact, pull off the surprise engagement of the century. She obviously had no idea that it was coming because they had no power. And it just wasn't, things were not lighting up for them that weekend. But I did surprise her after her surprise engagement with a huge party that we moved to my house. And she was just so shocked that she walked in the door and saw everyone and turned around and just held on to me for like 3 minutes. It was very cute. Her parents were there. Her friends flew in from all over the country. So I would say that is the craziest thing that I did get away with.
That one is so cute. Your ability to think on the spot is incredible, because I would not be able to recover the way that you did. That's a good one. What a sweet surprise. Kendalloni, what is the craziest thing that you have or have not gotten away with?
I'm going to have to say, and I don't know if this is still a rule or if it's not, but in Colorado at the time when we, and if Nikki's mom, Annette, is listening, I don't know if you know this, and I'm sorry, but when we were 16 and we got our driver's licenses at the time, for the first year, you were not allowed to have people under 21 in the car with you for like distraction purposes or something. I don't know. So there was a day, Nikki and I, she has always been older. She was like 6 months older, and so she got her driver's license first, and we would always drive back to her house for lunch, which is absolutely absurd because it was like a quarter mile away. But we went to Nikki's house for lunch. But this particular day, it was raining outside. And it was within the first year that Nikki got her driver's license. And her mom came home for like some reason or another from work. And we were like, oh my God, she is gonna know that Nikki drove me within the year. And because it's pouring rain outside, we're clearly not wet. We clearly did not walk here. And of course, Nikki's car was in the driveway. So I snuck down to the basement. I climbed out the basement window.
Oh,
This is absurd.
And went and hid in the back of her car until she could make a break for it. And then we went back to school. And
Something
totally
tells
got away
me
with that.
that was completely unnecessary, but it is very cute.
oh man, Annette is really gonna just keel over in horror. All right. Well, I suppose it's my turn. Oh my gosh. I was originally going to say something that I had gotten away with, and it turns out that I have hardly gotten away with anything, which is great. I think that's a good lesson for me to learn, is that you guys learned last episode, almost never get away with anything. So when I was in high school, I had a crush on an older boy that was living down in Boulder, which is about an hour away from Fort Collins. My parents were gone, as they were a lot of the time, seeking treatment for my dad. And I decided that I was going to drive down to Boulder to spend the nights with a boy in college. And we're going to be aging ourselves here. This was in the time of MapQuest. So I got onto MapQuest, searched his address, it's step-by-step directions. Kids, look it up. It's fascinating. And I printed out the directions, went and spent the night with said boy in college, and came back home. And I thought I had gotten away with it until my parents got home, and my mom found the directions to CU Boulder still open on the MapQuest. I'm sure it was a school night or something as well. So it was something that I almost got away with. I did not. My mother was absolutely furious. I'm sure I was grounded, as I was for a lot of my high school career. And that wraps up the crazy questions for the season. And holy shit, am I happy about it. We want to know in the comments and all of our social media, what is the craziest thing that you have ever gotten away with or not gotten away with? Because I'm sure that that'll be some fun social media content for our little reprieve as well. Well, drum roll, please. Ricky, tell us about what we're about to do.
So we are about to open our Zygosity tests from My Forever DNA. This is where we were testing to see if any of us were identical. And there's a lot of, mostly from my mom, a lot kind of riding on the opening these envelopes. She asked me to text her as soon as we knew.
Oh my God, she's still carrying that.
Yep. So I think we all placed bets. Me and Julianne did end up betting that we were identical. But, it's anyone's guess. I don't know. Kendall, are you feeling any type of way?
I just got nervous, like weirdly. I don't know why. I just got like a little flitter in my chest.
Are we ready, ladies? We promised you guys. Oh, wait. We promised you guys that we would open this on air. We received these results to our email addresses. Oh. We deleted them out of our inboxes before looking at them. And Kendall had someone print them off at work, put them in these nice envelopes for us. So here we go.
Let's do it. Oh my goodness. So monozygosity means what?
Twins.
Identical twins. So the piece of paper that I have is the results between Kendall and myself.
Yeah, let's just really rub it in. We'll do you guys last.
bunch of numbers that I don't know what they mean, but at the end it says, it gives you like the probability of monozygosity. And mine says 0%. It says the tested individuals are excluded as identical twins. The genetic markers observed are not identical. Based on testing results from the DNA loci listed, the probability of twin monozygosity is 0%. So, Kendall, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but you and I are not identical twins.
And I have the results for me and Ricky. Which, shocker of all shockers, is also a 0% probability of monozygosity.
Wait, but what is it? Oh, look at me shaking. Oh my God. Okay. Oh, I was hoping they would tell us like what percentage of DNA that we shared, but I guess we'll just have to do that on another test. Okay, are you ready?
No.
No. Based on testing results obtained from the DNA listed, the probability of twin monozygosity is 99.9%.
Shut the fuck up.
So
I am shocked.
You said yes.
I was lying. I was 100% lying. Oh no, Kathleen, I'm so sorry. I am actually floored. I am actually shocked. Do we need to take a minute? Are we good to go?
That's like a lot of nines on there.
Yeah.
Wow.
It just doesn't leave any room for.
Wow. Thank you, My Forever DNA.
Question.
I am shocked. I'm shocked. How do you feel, Rick?
Like I'm going to pass out, but I've been feeling that way all day. I do feel satisfaction in being right.
You were right.
I just mostly think it's like crazy. If you're a fucking scientist, you need to get on this because the difference from the environmental factors is like really something to behold. I think that's really, really crazy.
Mm-hmm. I just don't understand because
just so you guys know what she's talking about, I'm measuring at a good solid 5'7", 5'8". Kendall and Ricky, what?
I'm at 5'3".
I'm 5'4".
5'4". So I tend to tower over these two a little bit. And then I think that's the big one. That's the noticeable
and then
one.
like our teeth are different, but we had different orthodontists. Mm-hmm. Our lips are different, but we have different injectors.
But like also like there are very clear identical twins that when you put them up next to each other, you literally can't tell them apart.
Yeah, because they grew up together.
So strange. Wow. I am shocked. I'm shocked. Well, that was so fun, and I didn't think that's what that was going to say.
Well, and it's really interesting because, like, we always say we looked so much alike when we were little. Mm-hmm. That would have been before in the cruel world.
The cruel world
had time to work its. Man, so I really should have been 5'7".
Yeah.
What a bummer.
I guess you were stunted by trauma.
I was.
Wow. Well, I stand corrected. Thank you so much, My Forever DNA. Yeah. Anyways.
She's speechless, folks.
So we definitely did take some wagers on that. I think our next guest was actually betting on the fact that we were fraternal as well.
The man of this house was betting that we were identical after spending a weekend with us.
Was that his tipping point?
Yeah.
I cannot remember if I asked Luke. Oh, no.
I did. That's what I'm talking about.
Oh, Luke said he did think we were going to be identical.
Yes.
What did Colin think?
Yeah. Yes.
He said yes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was wrong. I was wrong.
Kendall, how do you feel?
I feel fine. Everything is fine.
So what that means is that we were one egg.
But yeah, it sounds like we were one egg.
One egg that's split into two.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, today I learned. That was so fun. Again, that was a partnership that we did with My Forever DNA. Go check out their site. They have all kinds of tests that you can take. They handle a lot of court cases and things like that. So go check them out. They're great. The ladies that work there are great. And it's just a much more personal touch on DNA testing as opposed to just like kind of churn them and burn them. So I think that leads us to what we are talking about today for the finale, and that is that we, Ricky, found our biological father, which we spoke about last episode, and we ended the episode telling you all that we were actually going to be meeting him in person for the very first time in San Diego, which we just got back from doing. And then we're actually going to have him on and see kind of what his take was on that and how he feels about everything that has happened in his life in the past 6 months. So, Ricky, why don't you tell us what it was like meeting Mr. Keith Stonebridge for the first time?
Yeah, so he came to see us in San Diego. We kind of last minute decided we were going to go to the zoo, which I don't think we would do again. Quite sad.
Yeah.
And then we were going to go out to dinner. So I realized the morning that he was arriving that I had been bearing an inordinate amount of stress ever since we agreed to meet, I think. So I started to really kind of freak the fuck out. And I think that kind of transferred over to Julianne in the final minutes. And then he let us know that he was in the parking lot. And we went out there, and we'll discuss it in the interview, but we thought he was in a PT Cruiser and stopped.
I looked out the window and I said, "Oh my God, Ricky, what if he's in the PT Cruiser?"
And stopped and discussed whether or not we should turn right around. But he was not in a PT Cruiser. He was in a perfectly, not even just acceptable car, a great car. And he got out, and that's when we were both like, oh my God. We have never met a man that we bear any resemblance to, obviously. Right. And it was pretty strange. Same, if you just cut from here up, just the same.
Yeah. Yeah, it was crazy because I was shocked by that our first face-to-face encounter. And then we went to go grab a little bit of lunch, some drinks before going to the zoo. And him and Ricky were sitting like catty corner they were next to each other, which was weird because he was next to both of us in a certain way. But looking between the two of them and seeing how similar their faces were was crazy. And I'm really sorry, Keith, I'm going to have to blast it out. One of the first things that we did is we also looked over at Keith's hands. And I don't know if we've said anything about this on the podcast, but all of us have very long, small, delicate hands, long, slender fingers, but definitely small hands.
We're sporting a 3.5 to 4.5 ring size. Yeah.
And I looked over and I saw my hands at the end of Keith's arms, and that was crazy. Just little similarities.
Never would have
like
guessed
that. Yeah, and that's where we got our hands from.
So, Kendall, while we were up to this, what were you thinking? You didn't join us. So I'm just wondering, did you have nerves on the day? Were you, once again, cool as a cucumber? Any thoughts going through your head?
I was once again cool as a cucumber. I enjoyed getting the picture from you guys. I do think it ended up working out perfectly. I didn't not go because I wasn't ready, although I still probably am not ready. But I didn't go because I've had like 2 trips already this month, and I was like, I can't do it. I gotta stay home. But I do think it ended up working out well because, as we have discussed, y'all have big personalities, and I feel like I would have probably been trying to, or just not, and just been like quiet. It probably would have been like I wasn't even there the whole time.
I think you're wrong about that.
I do too.
I think that you two are 2 peas in a pod insofar as like your disposition and temperament. I think that you would have been very comfortable around each other.
And I think just based off the conversations that we had that day and what we'll hear from him later, I think that Keith would have gone really far out of his way to make you feel comfortable as well.
Yeah, yeah. So
Not that, like you said, I think it all happened exactly the way that it should be.
Yes. Yeah. He's just a good guy in that respect, in all respects. So we got in his car. He is a courageous driver, like all of us. We went and got some drinks, and I think that was really good to just sit down at lunch before the zoo, the zoo would have been untenable to like have
No, yeah, not at all.
conversations. And yeah, we basically just asked him, we asked him some of the questions that you'll hear us ask on the pod today, but really just how he was feeling and what he felt like when he found out, and more about his childhood and brief stints in various extracurriculars.
Yeah.
And yeah, just kind of getting to know him. It was great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Easy rolling. And I think Kendall, he did bring us 2 presents, and we got one of them to you. He's so sweet. He knows that Kendall, we all like snack food, Trader Joe's. He got us these little rice noodle cake things from Trader Joe's that were delicious. So that was interesting seeing that he had a little bit of a similar taste there. And then he got us 3 bottles of wine, and we tried to bring them home, and they shattered in my suitcase, which was a lovely surprise to come home to. But I think overall we should probably let him do most of the talking today.
Yeah.
So without further introduction, the man, the myth, the legend, the spawner of many, many children that he did not know about until 6 months ago, went 35 years without this information and then was absolutely dumped on and handled it like a champ. Here is our interview with Keith Stonebridge.
Welcoming our final guest, our biological father, Keith Stonebridge. Keith, can you hear us okay?
I can hear you. How's everybody doing?
Hi, Keith.
Hi, Keith.
We're doing well. How are you?
I'm doing good. Fantastic.
Where are you calling in from today?
I'm from home in Arizona.
Very nice. Well, I think it would be a good time before we jump in. First, we're going to ask you the crazy question of the day, and then we'll kind of we'll talk about our time that we spent together in San Diego. So
Okay.
the crazy question of the day, Keith, is what is the craziest thing you've ever gotten away with?
Gotten away with. All right. This isn't something that I actually got away with. It's something that I thought I got away with. When I was a very small child, watching my cartoons, commercials for the National Forest Service would come on. The Smokey Bear. You're all familiar with Smokey Bear?
Indeed.
Yeah.
Okay, so he would say to me, he'd look at me all official-like, point at me and say, only you can prevent forest fires, right?
Mm-hmm.
So being very young and naive, thought that any time that there was a forest fire, it was my fault because I didn't do anything to prevent it. And I thought that was my job, was to prevent forest fire. And I always felt so guilty of whenever there was a forest fire happening. And I just could not tell anybody. And I just held it forever until I became old enough to realize that he was actually just telling you to put out fires and not throw your cigarette butts out the window.
So you thought that you had gotten away with unintentional arson several times?
Several times.
You specifically. You didn't think he was talking to everyone. You just thought Smokey Bear was talking specifically to you.
Yes, because I would often
That's traumatic.
That is
kind of pathetic. Then years later, say, and you'd talk to other people about your childhood and stuff, and I'd say, yeah, and remember when you thought you were responsible for those forest fires because of Smokey Bear? And they're all like, what are you talking about? No. And so
That was just you. Oh.
Well, thank you for sharing with us, Keith. So as we told the listeners last week, that was right leading up to us coming to see you in San Diego, me and Jules. We all met there.
yes.
So I think it's a perfect place to kind of jump in and just get your take on what it was like to meet 2 out of 3 of your, well, I guess 2 out of 5 of your, unbeknownst to you up until December, biological daughters.
I thought it was fantastic. It was really great to meet you. I don't know how much you've said about how much we've been communicating up until that point, but I think it had been quite a bit, and to finally see you guys for the first time. That was actually the first time I'd ever spoken with Julianne. We'd only texted before, but yeah, spending the day with you and your boyfriends was a lot of fun. I felt like I felt like a dad taking his little 14-year-old girls and their friends out to the zoo and to ice cream.
That's exactly how I felt. Was because I know this is Julianne. I don't know if can you differentiate between our voices on the phone?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. So Rick and I was feeling pretty calm right up until just literal minutes beforehand. And then I got really nervous all of a sudden. I think Ricky had been sustaining some nerves for an extended period of time. Were you nervous driving? Were you nervous in the weeks leading up to that? Or were you cool as a cucumber?
I wouldn't say cool as a cucumber. I was more excited than nervous. I felt pretty comfortable with you guys, just texting with you. So no, I don't think I was nervous, but I was very excited.
That's definitely a trait that we've identified that you share with little Miss Kendalloni over here. Just kind of unflappable, cool as a cucumber, not jumping out of your seat with excitement or with nerves. Just be like a low, manageable rate of excitement.
Yeah.
Then when you saw us for the first time, I think that was the weirdest part for me, is literally seeing you get out of the car. And
well, before we talk about that, we got to tell you, I think we already alluded to it, but we almost ditched you right there because we thought that you were sitting in a PT Cruiser in the parking lot.
Yeah. I wouldn't be driving a PT Cruiser, don't worry.
And we were like, oh my God, we didn't know what the make or break car would be. And now we see that that's the make or break car.
I think weird is that, so you weren't too nervous then leading up to it. And I think the weirdest part for me was when you got out of the car, because Ricky and I, we know that Kendall looks a lot like Kathleen. But if you look at younger pictures of Kathleen, Ricky and I look a lot like her as well. So I don't think I was expecting when you got out of the car to see how similar our faces looked to yours. That like stopped me in my tracks a little bit. Did you already know that was going to happen, or did that surprise you at all?
Well, actually, I was pretty familiar with what you looked like. I know you guys probably weren't that familiar with what I look like now, but no, it didn't surprise me. And I actually think that you and Ricky look more like your mother, your birth mother. And I think Kendall actually looks more like me. I've always thought that. I'm sure I wouldn't be surprised.
Interesting.
That is very interesting, because when you were sitting across from me at lunch with Julianne right by you, I was like, wow, it is truly uncanny.
Yeah. And same thing for me, because we had kind of the same view.
Yes. So I don't know whose perception is off there. Or maybe it's all true. Maybe it's all true.
Yes.
Because we have we all three have the heavier, like Cro-Magnon brow, and the green eyes and the almond shaped
hooded eyelids.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that's what.
Well, I'll tell you what, when I first saw your Instagram page, Ricky, at that point I wasn't exactly totally sure you were really my daughter. But then I thought you might have hacked into the cryo bank or whatever. But I saw there's parts of my face on her face, so that's when I knew for sure. And yeah, I was already familiar with the fact that we did have some similar features. Yeah, that must have been really interesting when I sent you those photos for the first time. It must have been like if you had a jigsaw puzzle with only like 60% of the pieces, and then 20 years later, somebody gives you the rest of the jigsaw puzzle.
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah, I do.
Exactly.
I think that's exactly what it was like.
Yeah, cruel joke.
with seeing us, and then between us and your two daughters, do you feel like there's a difference in and just looks wise right now? Do you think there's a difference in how much similarity you see between your daughters now? Well, your daughters now, your younger daughters and us?
It's kind of the same because obviously you have different mothers. There are some similarities, but I don't think my daughters are going to look like you guys when they grow up. But yeah, I mean, I see things in my daughters, and I see part of me and their mother in them. And I obviously see parts of me in your mother and you, and I think it kind of works the same thing. I think when they grow up, people will say that, or would say if they saw you both, that yeah, you guys can definitely be sisters, but no, not.
That's what I was going to say. Is do you think we look alike at all? So I think, Rick, if you want to kind of take us back, maybe.
So going back to the beginning, Keith, you would have gotten a call from your brother, Roman.
Yes.
Because I had reached out and contacted him. So tell us about that phone call.
All right. First of all, Roman almost never calls me unless it's like my birthday. So seeing his name come up on the phone, I thought something could be very, very wrong here. And I picked up and I said, "Hey, Ro, what's up?" And he goes, "I have a question for you." And, yeah. And he goes, "Were you a sperm donor in like maybe the late 80s, possibly early 90s? And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Oh, okay, that's interesting because you never told me that before, but then again, why would you?" And so anyway, I just spoke to your biological daughter and she'd like to meet you. And I'm like, "Oh, no way."
Pulling no punches.
My heart drops way deep into my stomach, and my mind just starts racing around, and I'm just thinking, what just happened here? Is this scammer? Is this a blackmailer? Is she a catfisher? I mean, sorry, but there could have been a lot of things going wrong here. And he told me that it was partially my Aunt Jenny who had helped him or helped you find me. And then I was like, "Oh, Jenny," because I knew that if it was Jenny, then it's probably true because that's my Aunt Jenny's thing, the whole ancestry DNA. And I could just picture her finding this new family member because she gets really excited whenever she finds like a dead family member. The live family member, she was probably just out of her head. And I said, "Oh man, okay." And then he says, "And also, by the way, she's one of 3 triplets." Come on. This does not happen in real life. And now it's happening to me. So I asked him a little bit more about it, and he told me that you didn't have, that you said you didn't have a ideal childhood, and that you started crying. And I said, oh boy. And I said, okay. I couldn't, if you were really like my biological daughter, I didn't really want to turn my back on you. I don't think you should ever turn your back on your own flesh and blood because, you never know when you might need bone marrow, right? So
Sound logic.
Yeah. So I said, no, it's just not in my nature to just ignore you. So I told him that I've got this super secret email that's supposed to be unhackable. And I said, okay, I'm going to give you this email address to give to her. And if she wants to send me an email, go ahead, but I can't see myself ever meeting her in person. You could let her know that, because it's probably not in the cards. So I gave Roman that email address to give to you. But yeah, that's what I was thinking at the time.
You know, I'm sure that we'll talk again one day, and I have a few words for Roman. Because I did not say that I wanted to meet you. I said I just wanted to confirm your identity. And I did start crying on the phone call, but not to express to him that I had a child. It was when I asked some defining questions about you to confirm who you were. And he said, yes, I have a brother that donated at that time, or that was born in that year and studied that thing in college. And then I choked up and I said, okay, well, I think that that is my biological father. But it was a highly charged phone call. So I'm sure that anyone could misremember pretty much anything that happened from it.
Well, I'll tell you, I think you won Roman over, and he's the one that wanted me to meet you.
Yeah.
Oh, Roman was going to bat. He was spinning a tale. He was bringing the drama so that you would feel more inclined to meet Ricky. That makes sense. That's really cute.
That's really sweet.
And
Yeah.
hilarious. So if
Wait,
you take it, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I learned later that you are a crier.
Yes.
Sagacious.
Your emotions are like right there at the surface. And so I was going to ask you why you did cry. It wasn't because you were sad about your childhood, right? It was just because of the emotion of actually finding me, right?
Yeah, I had been on a half-blown hunt for a couple of years at that point. So just to know that all of that work had paid off, and then that you were one degree of separation away. That's what brought me to a quick tear.
Okay. Yeah, I think you being a crier, you might get that from me, by the way, because
I think we all prayers.
I tend to choke up easily at some silly things sometimes.
Yeah. Super Bowl commercials. Commercials in general.
I cried at the School of Rock with Jack Black.
Oh,
I've
yeah.
seen it like 5. So, yeah.
So this was, well, I guess we're 31. So this was after 31 years, or actually even longer. I think it was even longer because I think
those puppies were on ice.
Yeah. So I think it was probably like 35 years, and you hadn't heard a peep. So when I want to just take us back for one more second, and then we can move forward. So when you went in to donate sperm when you were in college,
Mm-hmm.
what was kind of like your mindset? Did you ever expect that to go anywhere? I think we've talked about it and I've just like blacked out the answer, but I don't know if they were meant to notify you when it's successful. I don't think. So kind of I'm curious about because 35 years is a long time.
Yeah, that's a long time.
What was your mindset when you donated? And then as time went on, did you think about it less and less, or think that it was less likely that you were going to hear anything, all of that?
Yeah, when I donated, I was supposed to be completely anonymous, and I wasn't supposed to ever hear if I had a successful thing. It was just do the thing and be done with it, right? I thought their agreement was that if my offspring were able to find me, I was under no obligation to communicate with them, and no financial obligation or anything like that, and it would be my choice whether I wanted to communicate with them or not. And then, the years went by, and obviously I didn't hear anything. I honestly never thought it was even a chance of me hearing anything. And of course, I didn't know if any had taken. You guys were just theoretical, hypothetical, whatever. And, I didn't know if there were any. I didn't know if there were a lot, but I certainly didn't think that that I would hear from anybody. And then as the years went on, it like went further and further, even to the back of my mind, where I wasn't even thinking about it much anymore. But then, yeah, when I got the call from Ricky, it was a complete shock, just total shock.
Yeah.
And something that I never ever thought would happen.
And then I think about, so when at-home DNA testing started becoming popular, I think that if I were a criminal and I knew that at-home DNA testing was becoming a thing, I would shit my pants, right? I think that I would become very, very paranoid right away that something was going to come out. But once that started becoming prevalent, did that even like tickle your mind that might result in something?
You know what? It really, because I was just kind of oblivious to that. I mean, I know you'd think that being a sperm donor, I would, be keeping up with stuff like that, but I wasn't really hearing a lot of stories. I did have a friend who was adopted, and she hired a private investigator to find her birth mother, and he did that pretty easily. And that was a happy ending and everything, but I figured that the sperm donation would probably be harder. It would be harder to find me if someone actually did look for me, because one thing is I don't make myself easy to find. I don't have social media or anything like that. And I don't think you could really find me by looking up my name on the internet. So no, it wasn't a concern, even when that stuff was going on. And then at the time that I gave, there was barely even an internet, so we had no idea how powerful that was going to be in the future. So yeah, total back of my mind.
Okay, so did you make yourself difficult to find because you had donated sperm?
No, I mean, perhaps subconsciously, maybe, but I always wanted to make myself difficult to find in general. Part of it's probably a little bit of paranoia, because I don't want it, I figured if I didn't have a social media presence, it would be harder to, hack into my bank records or whatever. Or I've never really wanted to go to any of my reunions, and I didn't want anybody looking me up to go to a reunion or anything like that.
Bit of a lone ranger.
Well, they just make you feel old. You see people years later, and they all look old, and you figure, gosh, they must be looking at me like I'm old too. And anybody I'm already hanging out with, I don't want to look for people from high school that I didn't want to hang out with in the first place. So, yeah, I wasn't really people finding me for any reason, but part of it might have been the sperm donation, but yeah, it wasn't specifically because of that, no.
Okay. Kendall, what's your question?
Feel free to not answer or pass, but I'm just curious, because we don't, as you know, we don't hold back in this podcast. Were you just like a really altruistic guy, or were you trying to make a quick buck for the because I know we all looked into egg donation, and I think it's probably because you could make a lot of money doing that, but we're not genetically perfect.
Yeah, it certainly wasn't
enough.
out of a spirit of altruism.
Yeah,
no. Sure.
What was your reasoning for donating sperm?
Well, I'll tell you what, a little bit of both. When I was in college, Pepperdine is in Malibu. Very expensive to live down there. And I had made a deal with my parents that if they pay for tuition, I would take care of room and board. And I already had a part-time job, and I was living in a one-room apartment in Venice, California, which is up or down Pacific Coast Highway from Pepperdine. And it was $500 a month, which sounds like nothing these days, but back in the late 80s, it's hard to get by with a part-time job and having to pay $500 a month in rent. So I saw this ad in the newspaper And it was a way to make some money without having to actually go to work and put in the hours. So I thought it'd be a good way to kind of make ends meet, because I could also help people that weren't able to have babies to have babies. And so it was a little bit of both of it. I thought it was kind of a noble way to be able to do that. And to be honest, back then, I didn't think I would ever get married or have kids. So I thought that might be a way to have me put a legacy out there, even if I didn't get credit for it. But at least I'd have a bloodline out there and sort of keep the line going. Because I didn't think that my siblings would have kids either. So I did end up being the only one of us to have kids. But yeah, that's probably what it was at the time. A little of both.
That's so interesting. I have two questions. One is easy. How many times did you donate?
It was a long time ago. I would guess maybe 10-ish. Not that many. Yeah.
I bet you got some surprises coming still.
That is incredible. Wow. And you are just, you've got to be, somewhat proud of your swimmers, I guess.
That's what I told Roman. I'm like, oh my gosh, my boys can swim.
And my other question was, it's interesting that you bring up that Roman you knew that he probably wasn't going to have kids. All of us have more or less decided that we're not going to have kids. What indicated to you that Roman wasn't going to and you likely weren't going to? Like, what was it that made you say that?
Well, back then when I looked at, you think about your future, and I never pictured myself married or with kids. I think it might have to do with my grandfather on my father's side. Before I was born, he left my grandmother, just abandoned the family. I never knew my grandfather on my father's side. And then when I was about 10, my parents got divorced. So my dad left the house. I mean, he was still in my life and everything, thank goodness, but he wasn't in the house anymore. And it's just not the same. So, so I probably didn't want to become part of a pattern where I would get married and have kids and leave them, because I think I saw a pattern sort of developing there. And my brother never seemed like the marrying type. He eventually did get married, but after I did, I got married very late. So he probably got married too late to have kids. And my sisters never got married either. So yeah, I think that had something to do with it.
That's so funny. This seems like a genetic trait. So you have 35 years between donating sperm, you get this phone call, you and Ricky start communicating back and forth, which I'm sure you guys want to talk a little bit more about, but bringing us back to San Diego, that was the first time that not the first time you found out that you had other successful donations, but that was the first time I think that you had seen pictures of yet another daughter that you spawned. What was that like?
That was weird, but by then I'm a little used to it. I hadn't seen pictures of you or Kendall for a while after I met Ricky, and seeing you guys was weird and interesting. But can you imagine? I mean, like, I've got this little nuclear family here, 4 people, and then literally overnight, I find out that I'm like Nick Cannon.
Oh my God. So much better than Nick Cannon. That guy.
No, I cannot
Good Lord.
imagine that feeling. And something that I've noticed is that when you discover one of these children, you seem to be very obviously curious about what they look like, but you're very curious about the way that they're living as well. So what does it feel like to, because you have your children, what's the difference there in like the emotion and the care that you have for the life that they're leading?
That's interesting because when I got to know you, Ricky, better, I thought we got closer and closer, and you know, I felt like I am responsible for you guys being here, and your happiness is important to me. I want you guys to do well, and you know, it's weird because like for Ricky, I started feeling kind of parental towards her, like protective, and I kind of worried about her, and I had to tell myself, you know what, this is a grown woman. She's been taking care of herself for long before I even knew she existed. I don't really have to worry about her. She lives with this big army guy boyfriend.
We have about 10 minutes left, and we do have a lot of people who listen to the podcast who are not parent expected or donor conceived people. They're all within that community. And I'm sure that they want to know, when I reached out to you, you received me very warmly. Why was that? Was it the way that I went about it? Or what do you think is most appropriate in that situation? And what were you comfortable with?
Well, I felt like you were very sincere. You know, I was wondering if you were reaching out to me because you were so sad, but, you know, I saw your Instagram page and I figured that you weren't sad. You were very self-aware, and I figured that this was just sort of a quest for self-awareness because, you know, you get to know me, you get to know yourself a little bit better. You did say that you were happy in your first letter to me and that you weren't really looking for anything. And you were just very, very nice, and you continued to be nice. So, yeah, I'd say, you know, be cautious. Let the person who donated know why you're looking for them, and just, you know, be honest.
Thank you. That was beautiful, kind of, actually.
It was. Yeah.
And then for people who have donated, what would you tell them?
I would say be very careful about know that your offspring could come and find you someday, even if you think they can't. Do it for the right reasons. I would say don't do it for the money, because the money is not life-changing at all, at least for me. So, you know, do it for the right reasons, and know that it might not necessarily end perfectly. You know, you never know what's out there. You never know what's going to happen here. I mean, let's face it, I sure didn't expect your situation. I sure didn't expect to be donating to somebody whose fathers were going to die at a young age. And, you know, that could have a pretty traumatic effect on a kid. I'm glad you guys are all doing well, and very proud of all of you, by the way. I think you guys are doing good work with this podcast. You've covered a lot of topics. But yeah, just know what you're getting into if you're going to do it.
Do you think, and I hadn't even considered this a possibility, but like, I think for us, finding our sperm donor,
You and Kendall.
no, I think for any of us, there's obviously, it could go one of two ways, right? They could be a great person, or they could be a bad person. And I think I didn't think about the other side of it. How would you have felt if you had had offspring that had come and found you, and then if getting to know them, you did not like the people that they had become?
Yeah, that'd be tough. Because I'd feel partially responsible for that. And yeah, I don't know if I would handle that well. I would think that, oh my gosh, I made a mistake all those years ago. But and yeah, I was wondering, I know in the last episode you had asked Ricky how she would have felt if she went looking for me and found out that I passed away. And so glad that didn't happen. But what if you had gone looking for me? What if you had gone looking for me and found out that I was like in jail? I was going to be there for 10 years. Would you have gone to visit me?
No. Mm-mm.
Okay.
I've been to visit people in jail one too many times.
Time you went to visit somebody in jail? No, I've never visited anybody in jail, but yeah, I was wondering that. I mean, you'd probably want to know what I look like?
Yeah, I think I would have just kept it at asking for photos of you when you were younger.
Okay.
I think you would have felt the same way. Like if your children had not turned out well, you would have thought, oh my gosh, there must be something wrong with me. I think if our sperm donor was in jail or any number of things that indicated they were a bad person, we would probably start to panic a little bit about what could be inside us. Me, I would probably be like, well, that checks out.
Yeah, no. And you actually were the one who brought up meeting each other. I don't know how long it would have taken me to do that. Because I probably was going to wait until you asked anyway, just to make sure that you were comfortable with it. But I also didn't know what kind of dust it was going to kick up within me. So I definitely wouldn't have come to see you if you were in jail.
Kendall, how would you feel if I think I know the answer already, but how would you feel if we had found our sperm donor and they had turned out to be not a great person?
I probably would have been pretty nonplussed.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. Well, we're glad that you turned out to be the guy you are, because you are very warm, very sweet, very funny.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think I want to wrap it up with, so obviously you've had to hear some hard things on the podcast, just from what we went through to then like some of our own behaviors that haven't been great. So, and a lot of people could listen to the podcast and you said this and think, because of all we've been through, that we should be in a mental institution, or at the very least, like wildly depressed. So what did you think when you met us about kind of our worldview?
Well, gosh, I got to admit that a lot of this podcast has been very tough to listen to, because I care about you guys, and hearing what you've gone through is like really it's really gut wrenching. But there's just a feeling of guilt's the wrong word, because I put you out there, and whatever was going to happen was going to happen. It's more like a feeling of helplessness, that I was never there to be able to do anything or try to do anything about it. But hearing the way you've come through and the people that you are today, I think is just great. I know in San Diego, Ricky, you asked me if I was ashamed of you, and the answer is absolutely not. The way you've come back, you guys are fighters, you're survivors, and Kendall, you're just like this tower of strength. I mean, you not only had to deal with your father's death, but your sisters acting out, handling weapons quite as well as you did, and you had to be a mediator between them with their little rift. So I think you're especially to be admired. That just the way you guys have come back from all that, I think it warms my heart. I'm, like I told you, I was proud of you, and I really am.
Thank you.
One day.
Thanks, Keith.
So before we say our parting words, you were busting out some pretty amazing dad jokes at the zoo appropriately. Do you have one loaded up for us today?
I am king of the dad jokes. Okay, you guys are all movie buffs, yes?
Yes.
Okay. What do the movies The Sixth Sense and Titanic have in common?
Tell us.
I see dead people.
I'm feeling that one for sure. That was a good one.
Amazing. That was a good one. Well, Keith, thank you so much for coming on. And I know both of our mothers wanted us to tell you thank you for your donation.
Is that it?
We really, what?
Is that it? I'm done already?
I know it goes by fast.
Yeah. We eat up time on these things. We're really trying to work on it.
Is there anything that you wanted to say before we wrap up?
No, I mean, it's just been a pleasure getting to know you guys. I think you guys are the living proof that what I did so many years ago was the right thing to do. I'm glad that you've turned out to be the way you are. I told Ricky that if my daughters turned out to be the way you are, that I would be very happy.
Making me choke up. Please. Well, thank you so much. It's been such an honor. And thank you for handling things the way that you did, because I think a lot of the people listening and just people in general have either, gone on this journey and it hasn't ended out very well, or that's what's preventing them from even pursuing that discovery in the first place. So we're very, very blessed to have had you handle this the way that you have. And we thank you.
So you guys
getting to talk to you for the first time ever.
It's been very special. I have not spoken to you before.
I know.
Amazing.
I like your.
Pardon me?
I said I like your voice, Kendall.
Oh, thank you. That makes one of us.
She hates it. Okay.
Thank you so much, Keith. We just really appreciate you. And we know that everyone's been waiting to hear from you, and you did not disappoint.
Yeah. And I think you're really going to give a lot of hope to a lot of the people who are in this community and listen to the podcast, so that they know that it doesn't always have to go awry. And sometimes you can get as warm of a welcome as Keith would give you. So
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, you're welcome. I hope
All right. We'll talk to you soon. Have a good one. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, that was a delight. I have to say, the best part of this podcast has been interviewing people.
Well, that is what we expected, which is why that's all we're going to be doing moving forward.
Yes, I am so excited for it to be just us chit-chatting with people from here on out. But yeah, I mean, our interview with Keith, what did you guys think?
He's such a sweet man, and something that he told us while we were with him is that he did some stand-up comedy shows. He took some acting classes, and I think it was very sweet that he very clearly prepared and came to put on not a performance, and that he was faking anything, but really came to show up to
Give us his all.
Yeah, give us his all, and you can just tell that he is so sweet, and I think it's a little bit surprising how much of a paternal instinct he really does have, for us, which, yeah, I almost feel bad. I'm like, I don't want us to, he's listening to the podcast, he's listening to things that we've gone through, and I think it is, he's feeling the feels about it, but overall, I think it just showed what a genuine, compassionate person he is, showed his absolute grace in having a freaking nuclear bomb dropped on him and the way that he handled that. And just, I think, it's not for me to tell donors how they should act if they are ever approached by their donor children. But I do think that he does set a great example for the grace and compassion that you can show. What about you?
I mean, I've talked to him quite a bit, so that wasn't really very novel for me at all. I think he showed up and did amazing and had some jokes prepared and some stories prepared, which was great. I wasn't surprised to hear about how paternally he felt for us. I've been getting that vibe. So yeah, mostly I just really liked what he had, the advice that he had for other sperm donors and then other people seeking to find their biological parents or dad, and just really approaching that with sincerity and letting them know what you're there and what you're expecting right out of the gate. And then with donating sperm, to just be super mindful of that and to have an open mind if and when someone reaches out to you. It's more and more likely all the time, I have to tell you. So I really liked that he had taken the time to think about that. I do wish there were more similarities between us and his other daughters, but that's okay.
Kendall, before we kind of talk about what this season means as a whole as far as finding our biological father, what were your takeaways from Keith's interview?
I think that my main takeaway was that it's just kind of the perfect culmination and kind of for how this has all panned out. Like when we first, learned about you and then we first met you, and it's all kind of been all very exciting, but nothing super like shattering or life-changing or anything like that. It's just been kind of, more information and just, more people in the world that we get to love. So I think it was really nice, and it was kind of a great metaphor for our whole story, actually. But
yeah. That was your first time ever talking to him, besides on text message. Did anything surprise you?
I think he pretty much puts off the same person in text as he does in person, I think. And, just well-spoken, and he gave a great interview, and it was just fun to talk to him. It's this whole time when we first started, I was like, how are we going to fill 90 minutes? And then at the end, he was like, is it done already? And that's how it's all been this whole time. We have no problem just talking y'all's ears off. So
yeah, he has always been a fan of our longer episodes and our sadder episodes. But I couldn't agree more. I do think regardless of the relationships that we have with him moving forward, everyone will make a different decision. Any decision is totally fine. But to have it as, like we said a couple episodes ago, a bow to wrap around this part of our lives is great. It all led up to something, and it wasn't a huge traumatic thing or a huge life-changing thing. It ended up just being a nice thing.
Yeah. So I think that's what we'll end with. And Kendall, I'll start with you so we can end with Ricky, since this was her initiative to begin with. Is there any feeling that you have or any conclusion that you have come to, or what do you feel about finding Keith? Did it change anything for you? Did it solve anything for you, or not?
Shocker of all shockers. I don't think it changed anything. I mean, it's nice to not have kind of a
Question mark.
Like a question mark, yeah. And I mean, now I have to friggin' study our family history so I actually can fill out medical forms properly, which is annoying.
But we did find out that we are a quarter Mexican.
Happy Cinco de
I
Mayo.
am a quarter Mexican.
If you haven't tuned in on YouTube, Kendall is just very white and blonde and blue-eyed. And we found out that we are a lot of Greek as well, which is very, very cool. I think that we've always kind of had that inkling.
Yeah.
And so that was satisfying to hear.
Yeah.
I will always identify as Italian.
Fair enough. I think there's some of that in there too.
Yeah. I think for Kendall and I, this may feel a little bit different than it did for you. And you and I had spoken about this. We were raised by adoptive parents, and we always considered them our parents. We're very loyal to them. That was our mom and our dad. So I think when Ricky, you started on this journey of finding our biological father, I think when you did end up finding him, for Kendall and I, it just, and I don't want to speak on her behalf, but it was more of the same. It was like, okay, so I have a biological person out there, like Kathleen. Like, I have a biological person out there that is half of my DNA, but we've always had our parents as our parents, so it didn't stir up a whole lot for just not a whole lot of change. Very, I think kind of bow on it, and nice to have made that discovery. But I think it might have felt a little bit different for you, because you had started on this journey because you were obviously searching for something. So tell us, and I think this will be a nice, we'll go and talk a little bit about how the podcast has been for us all. But before that, just tell us what this has meant to you.
Yeah. So first and foremost, it was different for me. I specifically went on this journey because my dad had passed away at an early age. And then I just got to a breaking point where I was like, who am I? What is going on here? So the journey was very satisfying, first and foremost. Like, that is a fun thing to do if you're into that. And to finally get to what you're searching for, it's incredibly satisfying. Even more so satisfying that Keith is a good person. Mm-hmm. Like, that will never be called into question. He is just a good guy from the inside out. Seems to be a great father, seems to be a great husband, and just welcomed us with open arms, which I am endlessly appreciative of. A lot of people did tell me to go into this with no expectations. And I thought I was going in with no expectations. And then the thing that surprised me most, and my next quest to figure out, is coming away from that experience. Couldn't have been a more perfect day. I'm so grateful that it happened. But it did make me more sad about my dad, which I just had not anticipated, and do think that that is now something that I need to work out. I think it's probably really good for me. I think I'm feeling a lot of things that I didn't feel initially when my dad passed away.
Yeah.
That I'm sort of being confronted with now.
Yeah.
So that's not what I expected, but that's totally okay. And the other thing is, I've never seen my likeness in a man. And it's been kind of fucking with me when I look in the mirror. I'm looking at my face being like, do I have a masculine face? So, yeah, just that's what I would say to people who go on the journey. You will have expectations regardless of if you want to have them or not. And anything that comes up for you is okay.
Yeah, and I think it just goes to what we have said, in that the people that raise you are your parents. Because I know how you feel. Because it made me a little bit sad about our dad as well. And I think it's just one final tribute and testament to the amazing men that were Kenny and Lee. And it just made us miss them more than ever. and because they were our daddies. And I'm so sorry that it kind of kicked some stuff up for you, but I think, just like you said, I think that's good. I think it's just another, you of anyone are up for addressing it and, talking to Darla about it. And I love you, and I'm so happy that we've done all of this together. So I guess our final question is, we are at the finish line of, this is like a surreal experience when you think back to when we said, okay, let's do it. Kendall, we want you to be in the studio, sitting there with us, recording. We've gone through 10 episodes. Like Kendall said, we never thought that we were going to be able to fill up 10 episodes of blabber, and good Lord, we had to cut a lot of shit, you guys. So, Kendall, end of season 1, a project that I don't know if you ever thought that you were going to take on, and you so graciously decided to just embroil yourself in it with us. What are your takeaways? How are you feeling?
I think I'm super excited to stop talking about myself.
Yes.
And stop listening about us. But I do think that I'm shocked because I really did enjoy interviewing people, which I did not expect at all.
I expected that out of you.
And I also think that I'm feeling like we are kind of walking away with like a clean slate. And it's really cool because it's just like, I don't know where it's going to go from here. I know you guys had to listen to a lot of our issues. But I do feel like we kind of confronted a lot of things that we never have. And now I'm kind of just like ready to kind of dust off the old boots and get...
All right, Horns. Dust off the old boots.
And just, keep moving forward from here and just, they're made for walking, okay? We're continuing the walk of life together.
We are losing it. I totally agree. Ricky, biggest takeaways. How are you feeling?
It was very rewarding to do it with both of you. I think that it was more healing than anything else that we could have done. And just really fun to learn about you guys. I think that we all learned stuff about each other that we'd never known. But more so, and this is something else that I would encourage people to do, is we told you everything about ourselves. That is crazy to do. But to lay it all out on the table for 20,000 plus people to be listening to at this point in however many countries, 38 and
so many.
Almost all of the states, it actually feels totally cathartic. Mm-hmm. I have put my whole self out there, and if you love me, you love me, and if you hate me, you hate me, and if you ever want to hire me, that's what I'm most worried about. But I think you'd be crazy not to, is what I'm coming away with, is just to be that vulnerable is actually incredibly rewarding. And I would encourage more people to share more wholly and authentically like this, because it is a relief to go out into the world and know that you don't have anything to hide. Mm-hmm. And you said it feels like kind of a closing of a chapter. If anyone ever asks us to tell this story again,
go fuck yourself.
Good Lord, we'll just like point to the podcast.
Point to the podcast, period. Because that is always really a task, and it's exhausting. It is exhausting, especially because even when you try to abbreviate it for the sake of the other person and for your own sanity, they just say no. Like now they want to know everything. So I'm very happy.
You're happy to have a body of work to point to.
Yes.
That is, I had not actually thought of that. That is quite the relief. I am so incredibly grateful. This podcast has meant, I'm not going to say more to me than anyone in this room. But it did. I started thinking about it a long time ago. And we had not found our sperm donor at that point. So it was really just going to be maybe a little bit about us, but about other people's stories. And then, obviously, went through some things and did some things that I was not proud of. And to have this be kind of the way that we were able to come together, able to work on a project together, I don't know if this is going to sound bad, but I feel like this is maybe the best apology so close that I could have given in just being open and honest. So I'm, again, just so grateful to both of you for doing this. And I'm so proud of it. I really do think that it's a really beautiful little capsule for us to always be able to look back on. So we are...
Real quick, I just want to clarify. You said that the podcast meant more to you than anyone in this room. She means that the podcast means more to her than the podcast means to me or to Ricky, not that it means more to her than me or Ricky.
Oh. Yes. Oh my God. Yep. The podcast. Fuck you guys. Just
the podcast is her new sister.
No. Yes. I just think it was really, really healing for me and really a way for me to, like Ricky said, be as open and honest as possible and get everything out on the table so that we can all move forward. And I think this is the closest that we've been, and I can't wait to see what the future holds. So, holy shit, you guys, I think we are going to be wrapping up for today. We're going to take a 2-month-long break, but like I said, we are already working on season 2 for you guys. So I do want to give you a little sneak peek of our first guest of season 2. His name is Mark Craven. He's an author, he's a father, and Jesus, his life might be way more fucked up than ours is. I found him via a Reddit AMA post. So the heading of it is going to be your guys' sneak peek for season 2. I am a man who was raised by a severely racist single mother. She taught me to hate Black people. I was shocked to find out in my 20s that my real bio dad was a Black WWF wrestler. And that's all you're going to get for right now.
In addition to Mark, we have already lined up another very special guest, in my opinion. We will also, in season 2, be talking to Jason Hyatt of the Netflix documentary Our Father.
Go prep yourself for that by watching that documentary. Oh, my mind-blowing. Incredible. So,
and I think before we sign off, just a huge, huge thank you to the audience.
You guys are amazing.
There are more of you than we could have expected for a first season. Mm-hmm. And you have all been incredibly sweet in the way that you've interacted with us.
Yeah, I should probably knock on wood, but there have been literally 0 trolls. So, yeah, I think
That's
you're
how
right.
you know we haven't made it yet.
That's true. That's true. I'm sure we'll stack them up eventually. So, yes, thank you so much to our audience. You guys have been incredible. We cannot wait to learn and grow with you. We are so excited for season 2. We will see you in 2 months. And in that time frame, please send us your stories. Send us your stories. Tell a friend that maybe has a story. If you know of someone that has something that needs to be said on this podcast, and we really do not want to be put under any kind of like DNA discovery umbrella. This is more about family strife or
father dynamics
than anything else. So please go to our website, send us your stories, go to our TikTok, submit your stories there. You can DM us, do whatever you want. And in the meantime, we are signing off. We hope you leave feeling a little bit more normal in your own family dynamic, excited for the possibilities, and more curious about the world around you. Have a good couple months. Take things in stride and leave people better than you found them. We will see you next season. Thank you so much. And huge, incredible thank you to Scribe for producing the first season of this podcast. There is no way we could have pulled this shit off without you. And of course, thanks to Herzo for original music And thank you to Kathleen. Thank you to Tina. Thank you to Keith. And thank you to Darla for being just the most incredible guest that we could have ever asked for this first season. We could not be grateful for each and every one of you. We will see you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye.